Hello, welcome back everyone. It's Professor Gray here with you, and now we will begin week 11 of our course. I sent you an email this morning with information about the final exam. I would like everybody to make it here if they possibly can for the final exam in June. I think everybody is here in Korea right now, and even if you're a little bit outside of the city, please make a plan to come in on that day. I'd like to get everybody to take the test in class. Then it's fair, it's a much better test, a much fairer test for everyone. Okay, let's get right into our work now. Last week's homework began on page 74. A few of you asked some good questions last week in your emails, but it seems most of you are progressing very well with the work. Keep up the good work. The golden age of comics, 황금기, okay, like in Korean, like a special time or a great era of something in the past. Books most likely cost. Number 9, okay, remember we're looking at inferences here, things that are not directly stated, okay? They're implied, so you must understand them in order to understand the whole sentence or the whole paragraph or the whole passage. Now, the price here is, they were a giveaway premium, line 3, a giveaway premium. Remember Wrigley's chewing gum? The premiums were free gifts, like a promotional item that you get. So in other words, if it's a premium giveaway, it costs A, nothing. Number 9 is A. Least likely, number 10, least likely used to promote. Now, what did they promote? They promoted cleansers, cereal, regular household products, everyday items that you have in your house every day or you might buy every day. Okay, soap, yeah, soap is a regular household item. You have it at every house, should have some sort of soap and cleaning materials. Cookies, pretty normal. Bread, pretty normal. Jewelry, no. Number 10 is C. Jewelry is a luxury item. You don't buy jewelry just any day, any time. It's a special occasion or a special reason. It's very expensive and it's a luxury item. Number 11, at the end of paragraph 1, it says serialized book of comics. Serialized means in a series, okay? So a regular series, every week or every day or every month. In this case, monthly, I believe. So a regular basis, 11 is D. Okay, a series means on a regular schedule, regular basis, regular plan. All right, so cereal is another word, not cereal that you eat, right? That's a different word, different spelling. Here, serial means in a series, and serials are another way of describing soap operas. If you've heard the word or the term soap opera for a daytime television series, some of them run for years and years and even decades in the US. Number 12, Superman, very interesting here. Superman was like a guest star in this series called Action Comics. So one month, one month in the series, they had, let's introduce this guest star in the show, or in the comic in this case. And it was Superman. Wow. And now, of course, he's maybe the most famous, I don't know, comic book character. B, he first appeared in a comic book. Right? And number 13, it is surprising, D, that they developed so quickly. Right? Astonishingly, there's your key word. Line 6, astonishingly means surprisingly. So it is very, very surprising that 160 books and 90% of children read them. Wow, that's pretty surprising, pretty fast. You have to remember, at that time, there weren't a lot of things for children, right? Today, children have just millions of things, all these cell phones and games and online this and Instagram and so many things that are exciting. Back then, there wasn't much. Movies, okay, yeah, there were movies, but they were kind of a special event for kids. There weren't that many of them. Of course, they were popular for children. Not all movies were made for children, though. They had games, board games, but no electronic games and no internet and all the things that we have now. So children, they didn't have a lot of fun things, and that's why comic books really filled that void, that space for children at that time. And they were very popular, very fast. They're still popular, but of course these days there's so many other things for children to sort of grab their attention. Okay, that's passage 3. Passage 4, the filibuster. All right, I hope you have the notes here. This one's a little bit difficult. I think it helps to understand some of the how the U.S. Government Congress works. U.S. Congress has two houses, or two different groups. One is called the Senate, and there's 100 of them. 2 from each state. Big state has 2, little state has 2. Doesn't matter. Everybody is the same. Number 2, the House of Representatives. There are 435 members, but if you have a state with a large population, you have a lot of representatives, and a small population, you'll have maybe just 1. Minimum 1. Every state has minimum 1. And so it's interesting that for example, the largest population in the U.S. by state is California. Currently, I believe California has about 53 representatives and 2 senators. A small state where my family lives, for example, Montana, has a very low population, so they have only 1 representative for the whole state, but they still have 2 senators, right? So no matter how big you are, it's equal, 2 senators. And this was done intentionally to balance the power between big states and small states. Actually, we're going to learn about that too in the next couple of weeks. We're going to read a story about that. Okay, so in the House, you are limited to 10 minutes of speaking time. If you want to debate or argue about some law, you can talk for 10 minutes. But in the Senate, there's no limit. You could talk forever. You could talk for 100 years if you wanted to. Of course, that's impossible. But the point is, you don't have to stop. Unless, that's called a filibuster. Talking and talking and talking and talking. And so people give up, they go home. You delay a vote, you cancel a vote. It's a strategy to keep a law from passing. Now, if 60%, in other words, 60 out of 100 senators vote to limit time, closure, on a certain bill, on a certain law, a certain debate, then you can only talk for 1 hour. But 60 out of 100 have to agree to limit the time. That's not easy because, of course, politics, right? You have 2 parties and one party thinks A, the other party thinks B, and this kind of thing. Okay, number 14, C. The term filibuster has been in use since the mid-19th century, around 1850. So before 1850, they didn't use this term. C, it was not in use. It doesn't say that, it implies that. We can infer that. Number 15, freebooter was a pirate. It's a Dutch word for pirate. What does a pirate do? B, it robs ships. Number 15 is B. Number 16, the House in its early years, the House had no rules, right? In the earlier history, filibusters were used in both the House and the Senate. Therefore, A, no rules against filibusters. Now, there's a inference word here in line 4. The House now has rules which greatly limit the amount of time that each member may speak. Now tells you that before they didn't have the rule. That's an inference word, right? The House now has rules implies the House before didn't have rules. Now, number 16 is A. When I say the House, I mean the House of Representatives. Don't be confused with the White House. The White House is where the president lives. The House means the House of Representatives. And then the Senate means the senators, the representatives from each state. Number 17, closure is used B, to break a filibuster. Okay? Paragraph 3, there are now rules that can constrain but not totally eliminate filibusters. The rule in 1917, the closure rule, the idea was that if 2/3 of the Senate voted to limit debate to 1 hour, then you could break a filibuster, but only if you voted 2/3. So anyway, 17B is the best answer. Number 18, what happened? They dropped it from 2/3, 66%. They dropped it to 60%. Obviously, it's easier to get 60% than 66. So B, they made it easier to limit or block a filibuster. B, number 18B, lower percentage needed is easier to get, therefore B. And number 19, opposed to, so they were opponents of. Look at line 5 in paragraph 4. It was his hope, Thurmond, Senator Thurmond's hope, that this filibuster would rally opponents of civil rights legislation. Opponent means against the civil rights law. Rally, like a protest rally, where you bring people together to protest something. So to rally means to bring together, to gather together all the opponents. Okay, everybody against this law, let's come together and stop it. Well, it didn't work. Anyway, 19 is D. It didn't work, the law passed. Isn't that interesting though? Strom Thurmond spoke for over 24 hours. Wow, over 24 hours, more than a whole day. Continuous speaking. Wow. He must have had a lot of coffee. Help stay awake and keep your energy going. So that's the longest filibuster ever. I guess a lot of people gave up and they got tired of listening to him. They went home, this kind of thing. But very interesting piece of American law. Okay, any questions? Please ask. Skill 8, let's move on now. Infer rhetorical purpose. Rhetoric, so why? Remember in listening, the function questions? Why does the professor say, mo, 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 mo? Why does the student ask, mo, 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 mo? Those are function questions. And here, it's very similar. Why does the author say mo, mo, mo? Or why are these words mentioned in the paragraph? Okay, why? What's the function? What's the reason? Let's take a look at the magnetosphere. The magnetosphere is the region of space in which the Earth's magnetic field, due to currents in Earth's iron-rich core, is dominant. Rather than having a spherical shape, sphere is round, okay? Sphere means a round object or a round shape. The magnetosphere has the look of a teardrop, nunmul, with the tail pointing away from the sun. Well, teardrop gives you an image, a picture of what it looks like. D, indicating the shape. Teardrop is used so that you, in your mind, have a picture of the shape of the magnetosphere. Example 2. Earth has a relatively strong magnetic field, at least in comparison to the other inner planets. What are the other inner planets? What does this mean? Well, read on. Mercury and Venus, there's 2, have no detectable magnetic field, and if Mars has one, is it extremely weak. In this respect, Earth is quite dissimilar, not similar to the other inner planets. Number 2 is B, examples of the other inner planets. So, inner means inside or close. The 4 smaller planets that are closer to the sun, we can call the inner planets. The outer planets, the outside, the faraway planets, the 4 outer planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune are bigger and much farther away, farther outside, away from the sun. Inner, inside, outer, outside. It's interesting to note, I wrote in your notes, Venus, Mars, Saturn, Mercury. The names are in English and Korean, all are very similar. In English, actually, English names come from Roman gods. These are Latin words, and they don't really connect. Some of them connect to English, like Monday, moon day, Sunday, sun day, Saturday, Saturn, right? To-sang, to-yuil, same like in Korean. But like, for example, Mars, in Latin languages, the word for Tuesday sounds like Mars. It's mardi in French, martes in Spanish, and all Latin languages. So Mars is connected to Tuesday, just like in Korean. Venus, as you could probably guess, in Latin languages, that vendredi in French, viernes in Spanish, means Friday, connected to Friday. And Mercury, yep, miércoles is Spanish for Wednesday. Mercredi is French for Wednesday. So just like Wednesday, su-sang, su-yuil. They all connect in this exactly the same, in fact. Like I said, Saturday, Saturn, and so on. Okay, let's look at page 78. Okay, let's do these inferring rhetorical purpose. Why does the writer use these words? Go ahead. Xerography. Do you know what a Xerox machine is? Xerox. Well, a long time ago, that was the name of the company that created the first photocopy machine, Boksa. So the first photocopy machine was called a Xerox machine because the company used xerography, the process of copying. Let's read this story, page 78, and answer 1, 2, 3, and 4. Go ahead. Okay, one more familiar use of electrochemistry. So here we're starting off by giving you a familiar use of electrochemistry. Photocopying. Sure, everybody knows about photocopying. It's very familiar. Before this story, the paragraph before it gave another use of electrochemistry. There are many uses for electrochemistry. Some of them are not very well known, not famous uses. But one that is very familiar, of course, is photocopying. Number 1 is D. Other less familiar uses of electrochemistry have already been discussed. Now, let's look at a more familiar one, photocopying. Number 2, a process for replicating document. Replicating means copying. To replicate literally means to copy. You could replicate a painting, a statue, and so on. Dependent on photoconductive materials. A photoconductive material is It's giving you a definition or an explanation of photoconductive material. What is photoconductive material? It's necessary for xerography. Okay? Xerography is dependent on photoconductive materials. Therefore, photoconductive materials are necessary for this process. A, an explanation of a property that is necessary for xerography. Number 2A. Number 3, the author places the phrase, small grains to which dry ink adheres in order to give more information or even definition. Okay, a writer will, in parentheses, explain a word, explain a term, or define, give you a definition of what here? Toner. What is toner? Toner is small grains to which the dry ink adheres. Adheres means to stick to, right? When you make a copy, right? The the letters stick to the page, right? They don't come off the page, otherwise it wouldn't work if you could wipe it off. So the dark ink, the toner, the black here, black, adheres to the paper, sticks to the paper. C, more information, or really a definition of what is toner. And the last one, number 4, laser printer, is C, another example. Okay? Xerography means replicating, copying. Okay, well, photocopy machine is one way, and laser printer, very similar, but not exactly the same, of course, is another example. Xerography means copying. Most famous example is photocopy machine. Probably next most famous example would be a laser printer. Both, of course, are very common now. Yeah, when I was a kid, we used the word Xerox to mean copy because all the machines were Xerox machines. So people would say, I'm going to Xerox this document. And it meant I would copy the document. I don't think we use it so much anymore because there's many companies and many machines now. Passage number 2, demographic change. Demographics means statistics about people. DEMO means people, like democracy, government of the people. So demographic change means changes in people statistics. If you look up what percentage of people in Korea live in cities, what percentage live in countryside, that's a demographic statistic. How many children were born last year? That's a demographic statistic. How many people are older than 70 in Korea? That's a demographic statistic. Let's read about demographic change in the US. Go ahead. By the end of the 1920s, American society had experienced, done a long and historic demographic change. Since the 1870s, the country had been moving from a more rural mode. Rural means 시골, countryside, based on high birth rates, to a more metropolitan mode. Metropolitan means city, urban. So the US went from being a more rural country to being a more urban country. So what is the highlighted part here? As high as 50 births annually per 1,000 people. This is a high birth rate dash, dash, just like parentheses. This is a statistic explaining the high birth rate. What's another word for high? Elevated. If you want to go up high in a building, you take a elevator. Therefore, number 5 is B, elevated birth rate. This is a statistic that shows an example of the high or elevated birth rates. Number 6, prior to the 1870s, the population of the country was increasing by about a third every decade. However, by the end of the 1920s, a radical about-face had taken place. However, shows a change. Radical means extreme. About-face means complete change. About-face means literally 180-degree change, right? In the military, the command about-face means to turn around exactly and face the other way, 180-degree change. So a radical, an extreme, big change has happened. Number 6 is A. Extreme change, radical about face. Number 7, now we go all the way to paragraph 3 here. Look at paragraph 2 first, line 2. The trend during this era was more pronounced. More pronounced means stronger, more obvious, more noticeable. Paragraph 3, at the same time, the death rate, 2, was falling. 2, T-O-O, means also. So it's another factor. This is another factor in demographic change. Sure, death rate is a big part of demographics. Birth rate and death rate. Number 7 is D, a second factor. First factor is birth rate. Second factor is death rate. Number 8, better medical care. D, be careful. Number 8 is D. Now, an example of a factor that contributed to the improved death rate. When you think improve, you think going up, getting better. Up, 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 up. Yeah, that's true, but here it's death rate. So it's opposite, right? Death rate, improving death rate means going down, lower, fewer deaths. So therefore, a decrease in the death rate is an improvement in the death rate. D, number 8D. Number 9, most likely. Here, perfect example of an inference word. Most likely, as a result of these factors, there were only mo. That means this is most likely the reason, but there are probably other reasons. Number 9 is C. Other reasons or other factors might have contributed. Number 9, C. Okay, good work. Let's do one more together. Okay, telescope. Meng Wan Yang. Tele means far, scope means see. Right? Telescope, seeing something far, far away. Let's take a look at the Hubble telescope and answer number 10 through number 14. Okay, go ahead. Okay, the Hubble telescope was launched into space. To launch means to start, really to begin or start. Remember the Post-it notes passage that we read? And the 3M company launched the product, began the product. It's sometimes called a test launch, just in a few cities, right? So here, but here literally launch, we usually use for a rocket, to shoot the rocket off into space with great fanfare. Fanfare means celebration, big celebration. Although there are many powerful telescopes at various locations on Earth, the Hubble telescope was considerably better. So, the author is using this to emphasize that the Hubble telescope is not the same as all these other powerful telescopes. 10 is B. Different, maybe better, but certainly very, very different and special. Okay? By explaining to you that although there are all these other ones, the Hubble is really special because B. Number 11. Yeah, in essence just means essentially or basically. Basically, simply the most basic part of something, the essence of something, the deep, deep core, the DNA of something. But when you say in essence, you're basically repeating something that you already said in an easier, simpler way. In English, we often use the term basically. Well, basically, or simply put, In essence is a little more academic sounding, a little more formal. Okay, in essence, okay, what follows in essence is repeating the point already given, but with a simpler term, more basic term. A simplified description of a previously stated situation. Number 12, unfortunately, the Hubble telescope was initially delayed in relaying its first pictures back from space due to a simple mathematical miscalculation. Unfortunately, therefore, showing something negative, something bad happened. D, the high expectations were not initially met. Initially, at the beginning. At first, there was a problem, and these high expectations were not met. Something was not right. What happened was they relied upon certain stars to orient, to direct, to guide the observations, and astronomers working on the pointing instructions for the telescope used charts created in 1950 with adjustments for the movements of the stars and the ensuing, the following. Ensuing means after, following that time. In making these adjustments, however, astronomers added the amount of adjustment rather than subtracting it. A simple checkbook balancing error. This just means D, a basic error anybody can make any day, any time. right? You know, when we do the listening and sometimes they make a mistake, I'll put it on the left side of the window. No, sorry, I mean the right side of the window. That's a simple, everyday mistake everybody makes. Of course, in the listening section, it's on purpose. But anyway, that's different. So a simple checkbook balancing error just means a basic error I could make, you could make, anybody could make any day. We don't really use checkbooks much anymore. It's like a 통장. Now we have a kind of a bank book and the ATM does the math for us. But in the old days, you'd have to write down in your checkbook how much money you spent, how much the check was for, and then minus and plus and this kind of thing. You had to do all the math in your checkbook, but now the machine does it for us. And the last one, number 14, millions of miles. It's just emphasizing a big effect, right? The telescope's aim was misdirected by millions of miles. Now, I don't know how many, it doesn't say exactly how many, but when we hear the word millions and millions, we just think so much, a lot, or a huge amount. Therefore, a huge effect. It's kind of like, right, you know, a golf. If you're golfing, and when you hit the ball, if you're off by, 2 millimeters, but the ball goes 200 meters, it's going to be way off after 200 meters. 2 millimeters at the start is many meters at the finish, right? Because it has a huge effect. Same thing with the telescope. You're looking millions of miles, and if you're off by like 1 millimeter, it's going to be millions of miles off course once it gets out to where it's looking in space. 14 is A. Good work. Homework. Only 2 things here. Passage 4, territoriality. Okay, please do passage 4, territoriality, and review exercise 1, Ella Deloria. This is a tough one. It's a bit long, and it has a lot of technical and some cultural references here. So be prepared to read it carefully, but try to finish in 15 minutes. There are 10 questions. Now, if you don't finish in 15 minutes, don't quit, don't give up. Finish it, of course, but push yourself to try to finish in 15 minutes. Tell me how long it took you. Again, don't stop. Keep going and finish it, and then tell me the time it took you. This one might take a little more than 15 minutes, and if it does, don't worry, don't panic, don't give up. It's a bit of a tough one. I will explain it next week. Okay? And then stop. After page 86, number 10, then stop, and we will proceed together from page 87 next week in our video lecture. Okay, that's all for the reading comprehension. So homework is very, very small this week. Territoriality and Ella Deloria, 2 passages. Let's go to listening, page 158. Okay, this was homework. Zoology, hibernation. Now, if you want to look at the scripts on page 592, I think that's a very good idea. And you can maybe listen again if you wish. How you review it is up to you, but I will go over the answers with you right now. Okay, hibernation, of course, in Korean you say winter sleep, 겨울잠. 겨울잠. In English, hiber. Hiber means winter in Latin. And so this, of course, is the process many animals do in the winter. Okay, notice at the beginning, calm down, time to start, shh, okay. Even though that's not part of the lecture, everything you hear is part of the passage. So don't think, oh, this is not important. Yes, everything is important. The professor's walking in, he's got a lot of students, the students are chit-chatting, it's noisy, okay, shh, okay, calm down. Okay, everyone, let's start class, please be quiet, thank you. Okay, so in other words, shh, you're being too noisy. D, number 1 is D. Number 2, the topic is, well, today we'll be discussing this 3rd category of animals, the animals that hibernate. We're going to talk about how animals hibernate. Some animals, various animals hibernate. Number 2 is C. Number 3, the professor says, well, different types of animals deal with the cold weather in different ways. Now, when you're listening and you hear a professor making a list, write it down. There are so often questions based on that list. Okay? He says some animals move south to warmer weather. Some animals increase their activity to stay warm, and other animals hibernate. Move south, increase activity, stay warm. When you hear a professor list 3 things, it's very common to get a question like number 3, which one is not mentioned? Remember, the number 3 is a good number. You have 4 options, A, B, C, D. And so when you hear 3 things, it's common to hear the question, which one is not mentioned? What was not one of the 3 in the set? In this case, A. Now, 3A might be true. Probably is. I'm sure some animals build warmer nests or dens to stay warm, but he doesn't mention that. You answer based on what you heard. A. Number 4, well, we're talking about this folk tale, chale donghua, folk tale. Folk tale, folklore means folk story, kind of like a cultural story. And this story is called, Groundhog Day. Groundhog Day is February 2nd. And it's really just it's fun. It's not a serious holiday. It's just a fun day, fun cultural day in the US. And on February 2nd, in a small town in Pennsylvania near Philadelphia, they bring cameras and TV news, and it's just, they make a very big deal out of it. This little groundhog, and you see the picture of the groundhog, he comes out of his burrow. His burrow means his hole, okay? Burrow means a hole in the ground that an animal lives in, or it also, as a verb, it means to dig the hole, burrowing. And so he comes out, he walks around. If he sees his shadow, he gets afraid and he runs back into his burrow, and we will have 6 more weeks of winter. Or he comes out, he doesn't see his shadow, he doesn't get afraid, he stays out, winter is over. As you can imagine, it's sort of done for fun, kind of almost like for children, but everybody loves it. It's not very scientific, of course, but it's all a cultural fun thing. And the professor here is like, oh, well, it's just a folk tale. It's just a fun cultural story. And the groundhog isn't batting more than 50-50. In other words, Oship, 50% he's right, 50% he's wrong. But basically, it's not really very serious. D, he's not really impressed. The professor's like, oh, it's not that serious. Don't worry too much. It's not impressive. It's just for fun. D. Number 4 is D. Number 5, the bear is not as good as groundhogs, squirrels, and bats. D. Clearly says, again, when you hear that list, right? When you hear the list, he says the bears don't hibernate as completely as groundhogs, bats, or squirrels. When you hear a list of 3, make note of it. Right? Make note of it. It could come into play later with the questions. And here it does, again, twice in this passage. Number 6, here's a good one. I think the back of the answer key has it wrong here. The answer is B, not C. B. Okay, he says, that's a good question, Tom. One that I'm a little late in clarifying. Professor, I'm late in clarifying. Explaining. Clarify means make clear, explain. I should have explained this to you before, but I didn't. B, I should have defined it clearly earlier. Number 7, a little easier, I think. B and D, body temperature and heart rate decline, and that's a specific detail, right? When an animal comes out of hibernate, the heart rate and body temperature increase during hibernation. Therefore, the body temperature and heart rate decrease. In other words, B and D. Number 8, the last one, the area around the heart, of course, is C, the chest. Number 8 is C. Okay, how'd we do? That was a good one. That's a review of all 4 exercises that we've done up to now, all 4 skills. I hope you did well on that one. So, what's left? 2 more skills, skill 5 and skill 6. That's it. Let's look at skill 5 today. Understand the organization. Now, organization questions in listening, there are 2 general types. One is very straight. How is the passage organized? Is it organized by time, earliest to latest? That's called chronological. Is it organized by, biggest to smallest? Is it organized by geography, geographical area? Is it organized most important first, least important last? Or is it steps in a series, step 1, step 2, step 3? How is this passage organized? Then the second basic kind of question involves charts. Look at page 161. Okay, a chart, yes, no, yes, no. Page 162, okay, matching, connecting, listing, and so on. Okay? So, 2 basic types of questions. How is it organized in general, and then specifically organizing the main points in the lecture. Let's try this example here. Geography, rivers. Rivers. Go ahead and listen and answer 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, number 1, they are organized D. Features of major rivers are outlined. Okay, Nile River in Africa, Amazon River in South America, Yangtze River in China, Mississippi River in the US. 4 big rivers in different continents, and what are their characteristics? How long are they, and so on and so forth. D, features of major rivers. A, no, Western world, no, it's all over the world. B, continents, no, that's too broad. Characteristics of the continents, the climate, how many mountains and ocean, no. Just rivers, no. C, steps in the development of rivers, no, it doesn't talk about how rivers are developed. It talks about major features, major characteristics. Number 1 is the general organization. Be aware of general organization while you listen. Number 2, okay, little specific points. Africa River, no. Capital A, Africa. That means the name of the river, right? There's no river called the Africa River. There's the Nile River in Africa, but there's no the Africa River. The Amazon River, yes. The China River, no. The Mississippi River, yes. Right? Imagine it said the Korea River. No, there's no river called the Korea River. There's the Han River, capital H, in Korea, but that river is not called the Korea River. It's called the Han River. That's why Africa River, no. China River, no. Next one, quite easy here, really. Okay, the Amazon is in the Americas, South America. The Nile is in Africa, and the Yangtze is in China. China's in Asia. Number 4, they talk about a river in Asia, Africa, South America. Europe, no. Australia, no. And finally, number 5, in order from longest to shortest. The longest is the Nile in Africa. Number 2 is the Amazon in South America. Number 3 is the Yangtze in China. And number 4 is the Mississippi in North America. Nile, Amazon, Yangtze, and Mississippi. Please read page 163. Please look at that box, how to answer the questions when you have time. You should read the whole introduction on your own. Okay, we will skip passage 1 because it's extremely easy, to be honest with you. So I don't want to waste time with it. I didn't send you the files. I just think this tropism one is very, very easy. Doesn't challenge you at all. But The next one will. Archaeology. Archaeology, what is that? Kukohak, I think. And fossils, Hwasok. Hwasok. Let's listen now to a talk about fossils. Go ahead. Number 4, again, general organization question. How is it organized? Steps in a process. Step 1, step 2, step 3, and so on. Number 4A. Scientific passages quite often are organized in a process. What are the steps of the process? Number 5, actually number 5 gives you the answer for number 4. In the talk, the professor describes how the process gets started. Okay, so the beginning of the process. The first steps are 1, an animal dies. 2, soft tissues decompose, skin, muscle, ligaments decompose, go away. Number 3, hard tissues remain, teeth and bones. And number 4, hard tissues become buried in the ground. And the final steps, number 6, what are they? Well, hard tissue, layers of sediment cover the remains of a dead animal. The bones and the teeth get covered in sediment. Sediment is what settles down to become the ground. Leaves fall and dirt and dust and sand all settles down and it becomes the earth, the ground. But the sediment covers up the bones. So those bones get deeper and deeper and deeper, and the minerals in the ground replace the bones, and then the earth moves and the bones come up closer to the surface. B, D, and E. Now notice this, these are fossils. These aren't what we call artifacts. Artifacts, remember, yumul are man-made, human-made. This is nature. These are natural remains, the fossils. One more law, Clarence Darrow, page 166. 3 students studying in the library. Looks like a library. They look like students. No professor here, so you know that they're not in a classroom, so they're studying together, probably preparing for maybe a presentation or a test or a class, but they're going over the class materials together. So, organizing their discussion based on time. When you listen, whenever you hear a list and there's time involved, pay attention. This is a common question, and the answer here is D, chronological. Chrono means time. A chronometer is just another word for a watch or a clock. Chronometer, time measure. Right? Synchronized swimming. Synchronized, syn together, chrono time. Swimming together same time, like ballet. Ballet is also in many kinds of dancing are synchronized, time together. Number 8, the railroad strike was the Debs case. The evolution, evolving from apes, the theory that we evolved from apes is the Scopes case, and the murder trial was Loeb-Leopold. Railroad strike Debs, evolution Scopes, and murder trial Loeb-Leopold. Number 9, railroad strike, yes. Accident in a coal mine, no. It was a coal strike. It was a labor dispute. Coal mining strike, no accident, no. Murder, yes. Evolution, yes. Yes, no, yes, yes. Number 10, okay, the order. So this number 10 connects to number 7, right? The order, the chronological order. Number 1, the railway union president, the Debs case. Number 2, the coal strike. Number 3, the Scopes monkey trial. Number 3 was the murderers of a teenager, Loeb-Leopold. And number 4, the monkey trial. The monkey trial is the Scopes case. The teacher, Mr. Scopes, taught evolution in a classroom. He didn't say this is right or wrong. He just said, this is a scientific theory of Charles Darwin. I'm teaching you this scientific theory. And you can decide if you agree or disagree. He didn't tell the students what to think. He just told them the scientific theory. Good for Mr. Scopes. That's what a teacher's supposed to do. Teacher's supposed to introduce the theories, the facts too, of course, but also the theories, so the students can learn and make their own decisions about things. For homework, please do passage 4 on page 167, and that's it. We will begin skill 6 together next week. So the homework's a bit small this week. Good for you. Have a good week that way. Physiology, fractures. Sounds interesting, sounds painful. So please finish this and finish your other homework. Tell me the time it took you to do the reading review, Ella Deloria. And email me this week anytime before Thursday at 5 p.m. Again, please note your final exam time, and please make plans to be here to take the exam. It's better for all of us if we come. Don't worry, we'll have masks, we'll have the hand sanitizer, you'll be sitting apart from each other. It'll be very safe and clean, and we'll have a good final exam, and I'll get to see you here at least once this semester, which would make me very happy. All right, everyone, have a great week. Thanks for listening, thanks for joining. I look forward to getting your email. Have a good week. Talk to you soon, everyone. Bye-bye.